You've already won half the battle by just starting this race. Not overnight, let's get that straight right from the start, but in due time. Are you ready to start on this great adventure?
I always give myself the benefit of the doubt that if I run into a bear, you know, given it's springtime, it'll be a black one. They're more timid, still very dangerous, but more likely to run away than a hungry brown bear. I often forget that this is, oh shit, brown bear country. So that's why you implement sills, even whenever you're not expecting any kind of op4, because op4 is not always human. Sometimes it's not even animal. Welcome back, everybody. Free and poor. We're out here at the top of this hill, just outside of the Yukon River, and you can hear everybody down there on their snow machines. It's well into ice fishing season, so everybody's out. That's just kind of the nature of living this far west. Everybody does cool shit, so it's kind of hard to get far enough outside of town without doing an overnighter. But yeah, I'd like to talk first about how awesome multicam is here in this western Alaska spring. OCP reigns supreme once again. Sorry to all you brushstroke users and M81 users. But this stuff, the LARPing around the woods aimlessly, you know, there is some merit to it because it gets you familiar with a uncomfortable environment. 100% absolutely is something that you should be doing. But you should go out with a goal in mind. Some other skill that you would like to also improve. So whether that be bushcraft, if you're going out for an overnighter or whatever, practicing your fire making skills, shelter making skills, water procurement, on top of just the in a woods frontiersman, you know, mountain man stuff, you should be looking more into the intel or reconnaissance side of things. So when we think about the end of the world scenario or apocalyptia or whatever fantasy that we, and I use that word lightly, really is considered kind of like a fantasy thing. A lot of people have this idea in their head about what they think reality will be like, but the truth of the matter is most of our time will not be spent doing stuff like this, especially if you don't have night capabilities or a solid, legitimate unit that you train with. The lone wolf ideology is dead, and it should have been from the get-go. Back in like the 2009 beginning of the YouTube SHTF, Teotwaukee, WROL situation, everybody thought that they were going to be pushing around a shopping cart in this Mad Max dystopia, and the reality of the matter is that's just not the case. When you look at real life situations where there is no rule of law or the shit has hit the fan, I think there's like a tier list of most likely to least likely situations. I think there's 4 categories. One would be like the top most likely would be like natural disasters, because we see that kind of stuff almost every year. Like every year we see some kind of tornado or hurricane or tsunami, and it wipes out infrastructure for an entire area and can kill people. You know, the Andover tornado in Wichita, Kansas last year, it actually wiped out the school that several people I know and their children attended or worked at. So just short of doxing myself, that's a very real, very close example of something that happened to myself. So that's first on the list. I think second would be something like riots or civil unrest. You know, that's a centralized, small area that is actually undergoing legitimate conflict between people. So that's a little more, I guess you could say, I don't want to say combat oriented, but it is definitely like a social thing more than a natural thing. And then there is something like the pandemic, for example, where government institutions are granted extra powers. You know, people are put under extra ruling. There's these new laws or ordinances that are placed under the people that have otherwise not done anything wrong. So I guess that would be like the third tier, is like some kind of international event. And then there is the full collapse, total government shutdown, WROL, SHTF, Tiotwaki, whatever. And that, in my opinion, is the least likely thing to happen, especially, or maybe in our lifetime. I think we're closer to it than we've ever been, but that's, I mean, why would we have been closer to it 10 years ago? You know, because it still hasn't happened. So that, as chronological principles apply, of course we're closer to it than we've ever been. In situations that are somewhat more likely to happen, there are several things that you can do to better yourself and prepare for a situation like that, outside of, you know, running and gunning and SUT and kicking indoors, CQB tactics, footwork, and all the buzzwords that many LARPerators such as myself like to use. But regardless of all that, what I've been talking about in my Telegram chat has been things like radio communications. Everybody's got a Baofeng, everybody's got some sort of handheld communicator, and that's wonderful. But outside of just buying it off of Amazon, buying the extra battery and buying an extra long antenna, did you do anything else? Do you know how to program it? Do you know how to use it in an emergency? Do you know how to use repeaters or find them, for an example? So there are several different classes and, you know, prep exams and stuff that you can take. This is not me shilling for going and getting your amateur technician license, but it is definitely something you should look into as far as your capabilities, right? God, I'm sitting in snow that's up to my knees and my jeans are soaked. Luckily my rubber boots go up past that, so I'm not actually getting wet, but just a unfortunate circumstance of my situation, or of my area of operation. It's just wet out here. I definitely think that that radio and communication is something that you should have a guy in your unit that is a professional at, or maybe not a professional, but definitely more inclined to understand things like maybe a home-based station or a mobile station. Baofengs are great, but their usage capabilities are somewhat limited. So if you get a guy who knows comms and knows how to use HF, VHF, UHF, that's great. That's fantastic. I think that opens up your capabilities as a unit several-fold, because if you can't talk to people that are more than a quarter mile away from you or half mile away from you, that presents more limiting capabilities from your unit, right? Because if you need to go procure water at a source that is 2, 3, 4 miles away, but you can't contact anybody, or you can't talk to your base station, tell them what you need, relay observations. Everybody wants to talk about recce, but nobody owns a pair of binoculars. You know, I mean, that's definitely a problem, because you can definitely use your LPVO or your sniper scope or whatever you have to observe, but you don't necessarily want to be putting crosshairs on everything you look at. It's the same thing I was talking about in the which video was it? One of my previous videos, I think it was the over-explaining dry fire one. I said something like, it's important to have, it's the EDC one. You might want to think about having a light that is not just a weapon light, because you don't want to be flagging everything. You don't want to be constantly pointing your weapon at stuff that you are not intending to destroy, right? It's one of the 4 rules. The first rule is have fun. Anyway, So when you're building out your team and you're vetting people, you might consider asking them what one of the skills they bring to the table is, right? Because if you don't have any skills whatsoever, that doesn't mean that you're undeserving of a group of people to train with and learn from, but it definitely makes you an asset pretty much right off the bat. If you're a radio guy, that instantly makes you an asset. If you're a land nav guy, that instantly makes you an asset. If you know how to shoot an azimuth and make maps and use a compass, you are already tenfold ahead of most people who would otherwise not know how to do that stuff. And as a prepared citizen, as a part of a contingency group, I just slid down into the snow another foot. As a part of another contingency group, you should have some knowledge on all of this stuff, which is one of the reasons I started this channel, because I would like to bring this information to you guys as I learn it. Initially, if you're going to go out and hang out with somebody to kind of get a feel for them and how they operate, what their ideas are and ideologies and life views, world views, that's something you also have to think about. For some reason, everybody over the last 4 years has transitioned from the libertarian ideology, and they're trying to brand themselves as anarchists, which I fell victim to myself for a long time. What I think is happening there is a war on words, as I'd like to call it. People try to take a word that means something and hijack the ideology behind it and twist it and turn it into something that it's not. I think the left does that on a massive scale, much higher rate than the right or lib-right does. But if you subscribe to this, well, things aren't for me and I think they're bad, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad for everybody else ideology, you don't have any conviction behind why you think something is right or wrong. So this may be polarizing and some people may not agree, but that's okay, because this is America, right? We're allowed to have different ideologies and think different things. But at the end of the day, if I think something is wrong, inherently and truthfully is wrong, and I do not want it to spread amongst my circle, then I will vet the people that I train with and talk to and surround myself with, so that I do not have to accompany and somewhat, what's the word I'm looking for? Encourage that behavior or practice or whatever it may be. So, there's a lot of ideology in the gun space that we should include everybody. Everybody. You should take all of your friends, all the people you should try and get them into guns. I disagree vehemently. I disagree for several reasons. One of those being that I do not want to arm people who are not ideologically aligned with myself. That doesn't mean that I want the government to restrict their ability to do anything, because the government is Is that something that's going to get me hit? I don't know. That's not even entirely accurate. But the point I'm trying to make is it is not the government's place as a supposedly neutral institution with no bag in any fight, even though they absolutely do, to disarm or tell people what they can or cannot have. But does that mean that I'm going to actively try and arm people that are ideologically opposed to me? No. No, it is not. So, if you guys think that just owning guns, just because you're one step outside of this FUD centralistic boomer mentality that everybody can have you just need a shotgun and a bolt action, but the NRA protects my right for that for $150 a year. Just because you're one step past that and you own steel plates and a fucking DPMS AR-15 doesn't mean that you are really dated and wrong. So when you're vetting your people, make sure they're aligned with your ideology, somewhat at least. We don't have to agree on everything, but the core basis of who you are should absolutely be of paramount importance. Make sure that they bring some kind of skill to the table, some kind of, or if not 100% a skill, at least the ability and conviction to learn something. You are the dedicated guy who's going to learn how to get his ham technician license. Even if you don't go and get the paperwork done, you can pass the test. Because if you've ever taken the course, you know that there is tons of shit outside of just programming a radio and hitting a repeater. There are so many different facets of radio. It's mind-boggling. I'm in the middle of it right now. It's a lot of information to process. But if you can't find it within yourself to take an hour or 2 hours a day, or even a day on the weekend to learn, all these resources are online for free. I mean, if you can't find it within yourself to take your own time and push yourself to learn something outside of, oh, what's the best 10.5 build? Is 300 Blackout better than 6.5 Creedmoor? Or whatever the fuck. I know that sitting in front of a computer and watching a PowerPoint for 2 hours on the weekend is not nearly as engaging or serotonin-inducing as something like a gear video, but it is much more, or arguably much more important than pretty much anything else. So if you want to be the recon guy or the intel guy or the comms guy or the medic, you know, I harped on that a lot in my Minuteman Medical video. You should probably have somebody that has some sort of knowledge on trauma care and probably like field hospital level skills. Skills that would keep somebody alive a little bit further than just care under fire, right? What do you do after you get shot? So obviously, not all of us can be professionals on every single facet there is within a fire team or a squad or whatever you want to call it. But you should absolutely have the basic skills. I think everybody should know how to pack a wound, how to apply a tourniquet, how to use a repeater on or transmit to a repeater on a radio. I think everybody should know how to find their cardinal directions. That's northwest, east, or northeast, south, and west. You should be able to do some land navigation, some medical, some radio. But you should also have a guy dedicated to learning the extent of this, a specialist, if you will. And they should all somewhat hold your moral compass, because if they don't, these are not people that you can rely on at the end of the day in a situation that might have compromised lives, perhaps something of the something of the religious persecution nature. You have to be able to rely on your people, and you have to be able to know that they're going to uphold your values in your stead, right? So, yeah, I came out here basically just to rant about our people, right? People who are like us, that want to work with us. If you hop into the Telegram, just be aware it is not all guns and gear related. I had a couple people message me after joining, and they were under the impression for some reason. I just realized my Blue Force gear sticker's been sticking out this whole time. I had a couple people message me, and they seem to think that just because I am a gun tuber, that my whole message is, oh man, I just want to bring the two-way community together. I want to bring the pro-gun community together. I think there's a strict difference between pro-gun and pro-2A, right? And I think several other people have touched on this a little bit. I respect the Constitution as a founding document of this country. I love this country. It is hands down the best place I could have had the pleasure of living and being born. But I do not respect the institutions that have risen from it. I do not respect anybody who holds the simple right to own a gun as the foundational core of what this country is. There has been a lot of religious persecution recently, and it is overwhelmingly evident, especially in media, that they don't like a group of us. And I will leave it open to interpretation which group that is. Christ is Lord. And if you are generally opposed to that, well, we'll pray for you. So, this has been Free and Poor with another lunatic rant in the woods about essentially who you surround yourself with. I haven't had the chance to do a solo overnighter. It's springtime, so I would love to get out here and enjoy this beautiful weather. It has been 50 plus here in western Alaska for the last 3 or 4 days or so, and I actually slept with the window cracked open last night, so that was pretty cool. Especially considering when we got here it was dipping to -20, -30 sometimes. And yeah, I'd love to get out here and show you guys how it works before I have to leave. But until next time, friends, sorry about not having a video last week. My schedule may be a little bit shoddy for the next few weeks, but end of May I will be back in the lower 48, and I hope that some of us can get together and have some fun. Alright guys, see ya. Okay, I forgot to mention, if you guys are interested, I really like that creepypasta shit, and there's no shortage of tales from the natives around here, so if you guys are into camp time creepy shit, let me know. I think I'd like to read something around a fire